Okie dokie. So we are back with 2010's Predators. I'll be honest, up front, I really do enjoy watching this movie. I've seen it several times. It's one I can go back and revisit and put on and just, have a good time with. But I do feel like this was a weird step, and it's hard to really pinpoint. No, it's not. Okay. It's half hard to pinpoint where I don't like this movie and where I do like this movie. And what does work and doesn't work. I know there's a couple key points that really kind of irk me, or just maybe rub me the wrong way or something. They just don't sit. They don't work for me. However, I want to start this off with a little bit of not a rant, but just an explanation. And I think something that was brought up actually in the comments in my last video for Predator 2. And I think it's a valid point and something that I think we should address. And I think it's important just as a movie viewer, or a fan of how we see and perceive things that, change over time. This movie came out 12 years ago, a little over 12 years ago, as a matter of fact. It came out in July of 2010. And I was super excited about this movie. I followed the production along pretty closely. I was very active online in, the horror community and movie community in general, specifically horror. I love horror movies. Obviously, that's the point, right? But, I was on a lot of websites. Upcominghorrormovies.com was a mainstay of mine. I was on that site all the time, the chat room and everything, and just the upcoming news, what pictures would get released, killer film, worst previews. There was a lot, right? And I just couldn't get enough of it. I'm still kind of like that today. If a movie comes up or is announced that I'm very interested in, I'm an addict. I want to know what's going on, for better or worse. I think that's maybe a downfall too, but as a movie geek, it's kind of fun to kind of get that inside knowledge and to follow along with the production. It makes you kind of feel connected maybe to a movie, for better or worse. So I followed this one along very closely through the entire production up to the release of the trailer, and all that. So while I may have harsher criticisms today, 12 years later, I can't deny, and I won't deny, that when this movie came out, I was extremely excited. This was 2010, the last proper Predator movie, not Alien vs. Predator movies, but Predator movie came out in 1990, 20 years prior. So it had been 20 years since we had a flat-out Predator movie. So yeah, I was excited. And when it was announced that Robert Rodriguez was involved. And especially back then, I'm still a huge fan of his, but back in the day, dude, Robert Rodriguez, I'm a kid from that generation. Him, Tarantino and stuff. Those guys were movie gods back in my day. They were me. They were movie nerds. They got to make movies. And it was really cool. They made fun stuff. They made really cool stuff. Still do. But that combination had me just jazzed about this movie, and I was really into the whole idea. And it's not a bad movie. Let me be very upfront about that. It's actually a pretty good movie. It's not great, but there's a few things that I feel like hold it back. That it's easier for me to say now. Again, like I said before, we would watch when I saw it in the theater, we had a great time. And I've watched it recently. I don't come into these videos not having watched a movie, trying to go from memory from the last time I've seen it. I've seen it several times, but even rewatching it recently, it's still a pretty good movie. It's still pretty fun. I think, I'm going to get into the heavier issues I have a little further along here. I'm going to start with some of the strengths. First and foremost, I would say because Robert Rodriguez didn't actually direct the movie, he produced it. And he written a treatment or a story back in like 94, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it was actually a lot more involved. There was a lot more to it, and budgetary reasons they turned it into what it is now, or then when it came out. But he didn't direct it. A nice fellow named Nimrod Atal. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Forgive me if I'm not. Anyway, up to that point, had only made a few things that I'd heard of at the time, especially one was Armored in 2009. I think that was Matt Dillon and Lawrence Fishburne, some other people in it, of course, but it was like an armored car robbery movie. Not bad at all. And he also did Vacancy in 2007, and that was a horror movie. It was Kate Beckinsale and Luke Wilson, and it was about this hotel in the middle of nowhere that this couple ends up at where they make snuff movies. And it was a pretty good flick, too. I remember liking that one a lot. I have not revisited it. I probably end up, maybe I need to go back, check it out again, and do another review. Why not, right? It's a horror movie channel. And as of recently, he also he's done a lot of stuff, but what stood out to me mostly as I was researching this was he did 2 episodes of Stranger Things, season 4, which was fantastic in my opinion. Hopefully a lot of you liked it. I thought it was a really cool season. I liked them all, to be fair. Some more than others, but I think just across the board, all 4 seasons have been a lot of fun. Some of the better stuff that Netflix has had to offer. But that was cool to see. I remember watching, as I was binging out on season 4 of Stranger Things, seeing his name pop up. And I remembered it because it's a very unique name. So I was like, oh, hey, right on. Dude's still doing stuff, because I remembered it from this movie. They did some cool stuff in this, man. The idea of taking it to a alien planet, I won't say it's not the Predator planet, but a game preserve where they snatch up people to be hunted. And that's a cool turn. That's a cool direction to take the movie. The predators themselves in this was cool. We got introduced into some, like a new, I won't say species, race, I guess, of predator. They were kind of, I won't say bigger and badder, than the OG jungle hunter or the city hunter. Definitely different though. And, what's his name? The berserker predator, like the main big bad, had that cool mask with like the jawbone on it. Very intimidating. They had, one was called Tusk, I believe. And I think he was, I'm not 100%, I might be mixing this up, but I think he was the one that controlled the hounds, which was cool. We had predator hounds, like hunting dogs in this, which added to a cool, bit of a scene. And then the falconer predator, which had this cool, like, drone thing on its arm that, could fly around and scan and find people. And anyway, they added some cool stuff. I mentioned this in Predator 2 when they grow the mythology a bit and don't take these gigantic leaps, but just expand a bit more and give us a little bit more, because these are, comparable beings to us, and as far as like the complexity of them. And I dig that. I really dug all that. Some cool action scenes in this. They didn't water down the violence too much. It wasn't particularly nasty as the previous 2. I don't recall. I mean, like I said, I watched it recently. It didn't really stand out. Some really gory stuff. There's some stuff in it though, and it's not bad. But this is where I come to a head. Like I have to acknowledge things that did not set well with me in this movie. I'm gonna start with just like base storyline kind of thing that I would say it followed the blueprint of the original a little too much. Like, and at the time of, again, going back to that, but at the time of viewing it, I loved it. I thought it was cool. Like, they're paying homage to the original with all these fun little things, and even recreating scenes and setups and stuff in the original. I shouldn't crap on it too much because we've had a lot of legacy sequels as of late. Halloween 2018, Top Gun, Ghostbusters. But I feel like those worked. Of course, I have just seen those more recently. I haven't had to set on them for 12 years like this movie. So, 12 years from now, I might have a different opinion on those movies, which is kind of what my point was at the beginning. they're just too much. I think that it didn't feel, I mean, even like the group, it was like they weren't a team, but they became like a very similar team to the original. Even like, okay, like the Russian dude, and God help me, that's the one person I think that I didn't write his name down, and I apologize, but he's got like the minigun, like Jesse the Body Ventura had in the original. A little too on the nose. And I know I read that in the research they were planning on getting a Russian version of that's like a 4-barrel. It was a different weapon, different enough that it would have worked, and they just couldn't get their hands on it in time for production for some reason or other. Customs probably. I mean, I can't imagine shipping a minigun from Russia to, I think they shot a lot of this in Hawaii and Texas, of course, because of Robert Rodriguez, but they had to settle with a minigun. And I'm not complaining entirely. I mean, I'm never sad to see somebody using a handheld minigun in a movie. It's always a fun, I was like, hey, right on. Even Day Shift recently, Snoop Dogg busted one out, and boy, it got me all giddy. I got the goosebumps. I get all excited with that. So, I mean, I don't want to crap on that too much, but still, it still felt a little too on the nose. They had like the waterfall scene, very similar to the original. They had the final showdown even with Adrian Brody covered in mud and saying Arnold's lines.
I'm here, kill me. Come on. Come on. Do it now, kill me.
Things like that. Like, I as I watch it now, it's like, maybe a little too on the nose. But at the time, again, of seeing it, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun in the theater. I guess the two really big issues, I think, that stood out to me in this movie, and I'm going to start with the lesser first, would be probably something with, casting. I'm going to be flat out honest, casting. The first one would be Topher Grace, and I like Topher Grace. I was a huge fan of that 70s show. I thought he was great in Traffic. But he's been miscast a couple of times that I can think of predominantly that it just didn't work out. And I like miscasting. I like what I presume to be miscasting when I'm proven wrong. And that has come up a bit throughout my time as a movie fan. I think we were all wrong about Heath Ledger. And if you say you weren't, I don't believe you. I think a lot of people talked a lot of trash about that until we started seeing the trailers and we're like, okay, he might have nailed that. And then he did, of course. But I'm just saying, those pleasant surprises I really enjoy when somebody pulls it off. And it's not even that he was miscast, it's that the character, and this is from a conversation I actually had with my brother not too long ago. We were talking about it because I kind of always thought, like, oh, this dude's like a sicko. I think he was a doctor who killed patients kind of thing is what I got. I liked it, but as we talked about it, it's like my brother pointed out, he's like, but he's not a worthy opponent to the Predator. He's not a warrior. He's not an actual adversary. He's just a sicko. So he didn't really fit the profile of what you would think that the Predator would want to go head to head against. At least, I mean, I didn't see it that way now. The more we talk about it, he didn't even fit in the movie, period. His character. He played the character fine. That's fair. I'll give him that. The big shining turd in this movie, though, has to be Adrian Brody. And I like Adrian Brody. I think he's a fantastic actor. He's done a lot of really good stuff. It did not work in this movie. I'm not going to put it all on him. He did take part in creating the character. You know what I mean? So he shares his bite of the shit sandwich here, but it was just a missed thing. Like I remember, and again in the research that the director said we wanted to go against the stereotype of like the Arnold character, and it didn't feel like that. It felt like they went out of their way to try and make Adrian Brody into that character as much as possible. Like he got all shredded, and kudos to him for getting jacked and everything like that. I mean, as jacked as he can get. Cool. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do. But I just didn't buy him. I didn't buy him at all in that role of this hard ass military dude. I didn't. And I'm not the first person to mention this. I'm stealing this from other channels that have said the same thing, but his attempt at the Christian Bale Batman voice was annoying, like totally annoying. I just didn't buy it at all. It really felt forced. And his character is not likable. He has no redeeming qualities. I mean, he kind of comes back to save the day a bit in some parts, but he's really just he's a selfish dude, and there's nothing to like about him. There were many other characters in this movie that I thought were way more like I could root for more, I felt more for, I cared about more. I'd say predominantly the again, and I felt like a piece of shit for not remembering this, the Russian dude. He was, I probably empathize with him more than anybody. He was compassionate. He talked about his kids. He saves Topher Grace's life, sacrifices himself for him before he knows he's a piece of shit, which is that much more of a slap in the face when you find out what a turd he is. But he was way more likable. The girl Alice Braga, who played Isabel, I believe was her name in the movie, I cared more about her. I cared, and I haven't brought him up yet, but Walton Goggins, sorry. And he's horrible. He's like the worst one of the group. He's a killer, rapist. He talks about, raping women and doing cocaine.
I'm gonna do so much fucking cocaine. I'm gonna rape so many fine bitches.
But I think just because he's a better actor, I don't want to say better actor, but he plays the part well. I cared more about his character. I was rooting more for his character than I was for Adrian Brody. I guess that's my issue. Foremost, our hero of the movie, I just couldn't get behind, and I didn't care. And before I forget, I also have to mention Lawrence Fishburne as Nolan. He's great. I think the character's cool. The idea of somebody who's survived, like he made it through a hunting season when he was kidnapped and has stayed there, he said, for like 10 seasons, I think, which who knows what that is on that planet. Let's just say a few years at least, though. And he's lost it. Like he's, a bit nuts. He's an interesting character and he's fun. He added a lot to the movie. I actually think it'd be cool to see a movie about his story. That would be potentially great. Kind of a mix between Predator and like Castaway or something, But I digress. Not a bad movie, despite everything I just said. I just think there were some missed marks along the way here. It's still an enjoyable Predator movie. I can't fault it too much. There are parts I just feel like when I watch it now, I feel like it was like a rushed thing, but I know it wasn't. Again, researching, it took them like 53 days to actually shoot the movie. That's no joke. That's the better part of 2 months. That's a lot of work. And then knowing Robert Rodriguez, even though he didn't direct it, he was involved. He's a hard worker. He didn't let these people slack off. They were driving it the whole 53 days. I can assure you of that. But I don't know. Like I said, something just doesn't hit the mark right on the head like it should. Like I felt like the previous two did. Yeah. But like I said, I'm not trying to totally crap on this movie. I can still watch it. I will watch it again. I've watched it recently and enjoyed it. Let me see. I'm going to have to give it a 5.5. I think that's it's above average. It's totally enjoyable, but it could have been so much more. They had a great premise. I just feel like they leaned on the structure of the original a little too much. Some of the casting wasn't on. Some of the performances weren't on. The action was cool. I feel like we had an opportunity, like, was it Hanzo, the Yakuza dude, squaring off against the Falcon and Predator. It was a cool scene, and it was like a throwback to actually getting to see what happened to Billy in the original when he's going to square off the Predator, and they don't even show it. And it worked in the first movie, but it's like we all wanted to see what happened. And this was a chance to do that. And it's a cool scene, but it was just they kind of ran each other and swung. And it never, it could have been a badass fight. You think these Predators are all agile and everything. And as we've seen, like, especially recently with Prey coming out with how it moves, it just seems, it made the Predator stiff to me. And then you got to do a badass with a katana, and he's just doing the same thing. They're just running at each other and swinging. That was a failed opportunity to make something really badass. But again, it is what it is. I still watched it. I still enjoyed it. But yeah, 5.5. Also, I forgot to, I was so into it when I was making the Predator 2 video. I didn't get around to giving it a score. So here it is, a little late, 7.5. I love that movie. It's up there with the original, not quite as good, but not to keep going back on that one. So anyway, I really appreciate you guys following along. I got one more video to do in the Predator franchise, and that one will be up very soon. It's not going to be a week later, I promise. It'll probably be tomorrow. And then we're going to get into some fun stuff, man. We're getting our toes in the spooky season now. And I got some goals for the next month and a half, I'd say, to get some cool stuff out. So, as always, like, share, subscribe. Please comment down below. Let me know what you think. I got some cool ones on the last video. That means a lot to me. It's cool to see people watching the videos and having something to say. We don't have to agree on everything, so if you've got something to say that, just spit it out. It's totally cool. But I do really appreciate everyone watching, especially if you made it this far in the video. Big deal to me. It's a lot. This is a lot of fun for me. It's taken a long time to drop the hammer on this. I'm a busy guy with my day job, so this is something I do because I enjoy it, and I certainly appreciate anybody who watches this. It means the world to me. So I'll talk to you soon. We'll have the next video up very shortly, and we're going to have a lot more coming along. I think I'm working the schedule out pretty good for myself to actually get some videos up on a more regular basis and hopefully more often. So take care, and we'll see you soon.